So both. It's a flat. The scale is worldwide. Degree what you spend is a flaw.
Thank you, Dr. Weng, for joining us for yet another episode of PopAI. Following up on your statements from the last episode, why do you say post-selection misconduct is a flood in AI?
It's my pleasure. The reason for a term flood has two meanings. The first meaning is the scale. How many people or how many systems that have been media hyped are involved in the misconduct. So that's a scale. The other is the degree of damage and how much they were cheating. And in terms of scale, I'd like to mention what you probably know already. It's called Great Leap Forward in China. Everybody wished that would take place, and they falsified the data, like 10,000 jin per move in Chinese unit, and that's impossible. Even right now, it's far from the fact, but because there is drive to create this data to make public feel good, then this is called scale. What's the scale? That's in China, okay, almost everywhere in China. But what's the scale now? The scale is worldwide. Almost. I say almost because except for our systems, we don't do deep learning kind of post-selection misconduct, and we don't call it deep learning either. And deep learning was a name that hyped later. In the early on, we called it neural networks, multi-layer neural networks. And the scale is so big, except ours, almost every system, we call it. Because I have not seen any other system that's not original from our system can avoid post-selection misconduct. So the scale is everywhere. All right? I don't want to mention every groups that I can come up a name, but pretty sure that if you mention a name, I will tell you that's misconduct, other than ours. Or my colleagues that work with me, then after they got degree, they went back to other places. They start with deep learning but it's not deep learning, it's a developmental network. So the scale is huge. The second is the degree of damage. So for example, suppose a great leap forward, we have 10,000 genes, but the fact is still maybe just a couple hundred genes, so the degree exaggeration is like 10 times. But in our case, the AI exaggeration, the factor of exaggeration is about hundreds times. And I have a different way of computing it, but the exaggeration is so large, 100 or over 100, depends on the actual parameters. Then the performance you will have heard is totally wrong. It's not the real performance, but it's wrong. So both. It's a flat because it's bad, the water is so deep, flat, and it's everywhere. So I call it flat.
A lot of our viewers would be familiar with large language models, LLMs, like ChatGPT and DeepSeek, and they've become really popular in recent times. Do you think that almost all LLMs are doing post-selection misconduct too?
Good question. The post-selection started before LLM, large language models. And the precursor of large language model is Transformer. Transformer from a big company, and I don't want to mention the name of the company, and everybody just look it up. All right, Transformer is from which company? And the Transformer is a language sequence, basically. And before that, there are many systems that are mostly for pattern recognition. Actually, large language model, LLM, is also for pattern recognition. It's a sequential language. It's the language signal in terms of sequence, and it does not have generalization. So there's no tangible generalization mechanism in the neural networks. So they all do post-selection misconduct because cannot generalize. And you need to find a luckiest system in a bag. The bag can have like hundreds or tens of thousands systems in the bag. Then you try every system in the bag and to see the luck. Then they report the luckiest one. So the performance you heard, just like lottery, all right? Last week, there was one guy get $1 million, and he said, "This is intelligent?" No, it just tried so many lottery tickets, and the luckiest one get a lot of money, but does not mean that he can have a good performance because you have so many tickets that tried and failed. So that's why LLM, DeepSeek, they all did post-selection misconduct. Do I have a first-hand experience? No, I don't. But I read a paper of large language models from OpenAI, and they did not cite any performance. They just say what they tried. Then DeepSeek had a paper in an archive, and they compared performance. They have 7 or 9 public data set. Then they compared performance between ChatGPT and DeepSeek, and the performance are very similar. Then they claim suddenly, okay, we did not use as much resource, then we did almost similar performance, then create another wave of cheating and media hype.
If LLMs are doing misconduct too and they cannot generalize, why does it seem like people think that LLMs work for them?
In fact, my son said the same thing. Dad, it works. Why do I care? So what that he means is that it works means that he will ask a question and will come up with something that sometimes it's off the chart. And he will add another piece of information in his question, then he will get roughly what he expects. And it does not mean that the system is doing well. And I call it open skull method. The skull is the bone that includes your brain. Open skull is that when the brain generates the language or signals from the machine learner, it's not just the machine itself, but including many people that tune the output. They change the parameters, they tune the output, then expect something came out that's possible for the company. So that's why OpenAI spent over $1 billion on the manpower, and those manpower that for each type of question, they tune the parameters and they try the lucks. Then what I think what they're doing is that they have a tree. They start with classified question types. Then each question types, you have another retrieval. So it's like I have many cases from cost to find. Then finally at the leaf, they will get performance that the in-house developer look at, oh, this performance looks reasonable, so then let it go. So the machine is generating the answers, but those answers are not really from machine alone, but mostly from human. So this is the mock exam. And if you do have real exam, and they do pair poorly, and they will come up with very bad answers, but my son will frame his question and try to tune again. Basically, it's tuning the question instead of tuning the parameters, then come up with the answer that what he likes. Then he says, oh, Dad, it looks like it's getting the answer expected, but it's not. Machine is understanding his question, or rather he tuned his question to get he wanted. So it's not intelligence. It's human intelligence. It's a speaker's intelligence instead of answer's intelligence.
And why should people care about this misconduct by LLMs?
Very good question. Why do we have to care? Suppose I am a high schooler and I learn AI in my science class, And then the teacher did not understand what's going on. It's a great leap forward. And the teacher was said, oh, we have 10,000 genes per mole. That's like 10 times of the history. And our science is advanced in very fast pace. But then you spend your effort in the AI. Just like we have some very smart minds a top of class, they entered physics. And they thought physics is giving some breakthrough. I will not really talk about the breakthrough so-called, I will not mention it. I'll do it later on. Same thing happening in other discipline. But in terms of AI, it's great leap forward. That's a force. And if you do not get the real picture, you learn many techniques. You thought it works, but it turns out to be you are part of the flaw. And do you really want to be part of flaw? And what do you learn in the high school or enter university? What do you learn in the 4 year? And even later, you get a grad degree. You spend from 3 to 6 years. And the grad degree, what you spend is a flawed. Is what you want, you already get old, right? You will not be able to really correct your mistake, and you already generate many papers. Those papers are lies. Do you want that? So in terms of ethics, we should not, right? We should not cheat our new generations. So we have Mr. Gong, Jackson Gong, has a paper in IEEE CDS newsletter. His title is, Please Save Our High School Students. So our educational system is failing our students, not just in high schools, because high schools, they don't understand what's going on. They are easy to absorb what they tell them, but also in universities, undergrad, grad, and companies. So we should be ethical, and we are wasting too much money in AI in the order of hundreds of billions of dollars every year.
Then what about these degree courses on AI in big universities like Harvard and Stanford and Carnegie Mellon? Are they doing the same misconduct? Are they teaching the same misconduct?
It's hard to believe, right? You said, oh, Harvard is one of the best schools, and Stanford, Carnegie Mellon, first of all, don't believe ranking, right? And the ranking, they just look at the superficial metrics. If you look at the metrics, you will really laugh at it. How can these metrics high mean the top school, right? Give example that the SAT mean score, and how can SAT high score means top school? And because you get in top class, does not mean that your graduates are top. Right? You just get students that work harder, they did better in the SAT test. So don't believe the so-called high-ranking universities. And the hard problem is just like in China, right? China, we have also different universities and professors during the Cultural Revolution, during the Great Leap Forward, all those scholars persecuted, right? Get cheated. They cannot tell the truth, right? Those people that know the truth that cannot tell the truth. The same thing is going on in universities like Harvard, Carnegie Mellon, and Stanford. Those professors are doing lie. And I contact some of the professors. One professor very well respected, and I talked to him, and he finally said that, John, cherry picking is wrong. But he will not tell others. He will not say, oh, everybody, listen, cherry picking is wrong. He only wrote email to me, all right, because he's honest. I said, you need to be ethical, all right? Then he was pressed. He said, all right, I agree that cherry picking is wrong. He's in Stanford, by the way, but I don't want to mention the name because he did not authorize me to mention his name.
Can you explain in layman's language your efforts to avoid post-selection misconduct?
Do you really mean that how we avoid deep learning misconduct?
Yep.
That's a long shot until all my team members in the Genesema. It's a long shot. So how to avoid deep learning misconduct? If anybody came to me, said, John, where do you research? We're not doing deep learning misconduct called post-selection, and I don't believe it. Why? Because in order to solve this problem, you need to solve $20 million problems. 20 problems, and each problem require roughly on the order of $1 million investment. But I think that even $1 million investment will not solve a problem because it's a holistic solution. You need a holistic solution to solve $20 million problems in order to address the problem, what's called post-selection misconduct problem. In fact, it corresponding to a local minima problem. If you talk to machine learning guys or mathematicians, they all know what do you mean the local minima problem. So local minima problem is like you want to find a lowest spot on the earth, and then because the terrain we have many hills and valleys, and once you try to find the lowest spot, you try to find use a ball, and the ball will land somewhere and start to roll down onto a pit. But the pit is a local minimum, right? It's not a global minimum because it depends on where you are. And it's very difficult to find the global minimum. Global minimum is the best solution in the fitting set, but even you find the global minimum, the lowest spot on the earth, is not a solution. So that's why we need to learn probability in mathematics. And we want to really get the optimality in the sense of probability, not greedy in the sense I want to find the lowest spot on the earth, because lowest spot on the earth is not the solution. Just like your brain, right? Your brain will avoid local minima, and the brain does not find a global minima. It doesn't, and that's why it's very interesting to participate in our 2026 summer school. PopAI has a plan to run in PopAI summer school, 2 locations, one in the United States, another in India, and keep eye open, look for the announcement in the PopAI magazine that will coming up. And it will give you opportunity to learn how to avoid the post-selection misconduct along with the holistic solution to $20 million problems that brain solved, but we have no clue about it, most people. And it's very, very interesting to look into that solution. Many AI guys are interested in this solution, but they are not ready yet to understand it.
You piqued my interest when you mentioned $20 million problems. Do you think these $20 million problems have solutions? How do you plan to educate us about these problems?
No, I need to be really, really honest. So the solution to the 20 million problems is the brain's way. I think that's as far as I understand it, after studying in biology, neuroscience, cognitive science, or psychology, electrical engineering, computer science, mathematics, and probably including also physics. That's 7 disciplines, and we have a best case how brain works, and we find out with surprise, brain solved $20 million problems. But are we ready in terms of technology to resolve that holy grail issue? I think that technology is not ready yet. Technically, we need a monolithic 3D VSI. So we call it M3D, M for monolithic. M3D chip is being studied, but not quite ready yet. So we call for the young minds, smart students, hardworking students, join our team toward the goal of brain scale M3D chips. And the hardware, you need to be very fast on the chip learning and learn fast like the brain. And we probably don't have as many as cells when you have VSI chips, but the number of chips should be roughly the brain scale because chips learn fast and the neuron learn slow. So we can probably trade off between these two speeds and reach our brain science chip that learning on the chip in the future. I don't know how long it takes, but we have a very good chance. And if we get enough fundings from smart investors, and we'll have a practical brain that has consciousness.
Sounds like we have a really exciting future for us. Dr. Weng, thank you for your time. Thank you for all your advice. We really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.